I don't really have a pre-show for you this week, even though last week I think we had at least a pre-show and a pre-show, if not a triple pre-show.
Yeah, I think it's minimum a triple pre-show.
Yeah. And now I'm like, maybe we should have saved one of those pre-shows for this show so that, there was an extra pre-show.
No, I think you can't hold your pre-shows close to the chest. You just gotta
let it happen.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't.
It's just warm up, right? I mean, people can't just expect that there's going to be like multiple pre-shows.
I think people have strong expectations for you and your pre-shows.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Like, next thing you know, I'm going to have show notes just for the pre-shows.
Yeah.
And then, like, there's just going to be a whole nother show. It'll be the show before the show.
The show before the show. It'll be one of those 3-hour podcasts.
You would never let that happen.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
This is what, episode 87?
That is episode 87.
And I'm going to have to scroll past episode 89 and 87 Mark II to get to 87.
Yep.
We really should make 87 Mark II just 88 instead. I don't know why.
Might be a little bit less
confusing. I don't know why you want to name it like a camera company.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just start naming our episodes like that. Just make it really weird. Yeah. This is episode 88S Mark III.
Yeah. Love it.
This is 89H. This is our video focus podcast. Isn't 89S the video focus podcast? Well, no, that one's for low light.
Oh, man. Don't give us ideas.
Oh, jeez. Okay. I saw this thing on something. Maybe it was like Instagram. I don't know. But you know how on your Sony camera, not your Sony camera.
Yeah. I don't have a Sony camera.
Wait, I don't even know if you know about this actually. But you know about the hot shoe thing. But on Sony camera, they have the hot shoe thing. You can put the microphone in the hot shoe and then you don't have to plug in a 3.5. DJI now has an adapter where you can take the DJI Mic 2, not the one, but the 2 with a 30. That one has 32-bit. No, it doesn't.
I think it does.
Yes, it does. 32-bit. And you can just slap that puppy in the adapter, put that adapter on your Sony hot shoe. You don't have to plug in the mic cable.
Yeah, pretty cool. It's one step closer to what we've been saying, where we want that just to be, that receiver to just be built in.
Build it in.
Yep. I wish they made that for other cameras, though, because Sony's not the only company that does that hot shoe thing. Like, you can actually buy a test cam recorder that works with Fuji's the same way.
True. Yeah.
And it'd be cool to see DJI come out with these adapters for other cameras.
Panasonic has that, what is it? Double multi XLR audio interface thing that goes into the hot shoe.
Yep. Would like to see that.
Some modern cameras don't even have hot shoes.
That's crazy.
They just have shoes that are cold as ice.
Got an example of one of those?
Not one that we're talking about this week, but it rhymes with Umix S line.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to save that one for next week.
I was looking to see if there's any sort of technical limitations with using that DJ Mic 2 adapter with the Sony cameras.
I mean, I think one thing that may not be obvious to people is that if you're doing it that way and recording onto the video track, that is not going to be 32-bit float. So, because the camera itself is what is recording the footage and recording the audio, and the camera is not 32-bit float. So you would get your 32-bit float file like recorded on board the DJI mic, but that's never going into the camera.
Right. It's essentially your scratch. But if you're not peaking, I mean, it's better than scratch. I mean, you're getting whatever 44, whatever the preamps in the camera can do.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good clarification. Okay, Daniel. It's a Fuji episode.
Yes, it is. Because Fuji had an event and they announced stuff.
They announced the camera that we have all been waiting for.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but they announced a camera we've been waiting to see.
I guess the camera that we were all waiting for was the X100-6.
Yeah.
And that was already announced.
Yep.
Do you just want to talk about that one today?
I think we covered that one enough.
Nah.
We should probably talk about the
The reviews for the X100-6 came out after we talked about the X100-6, and we didn't loop back and then talk about what everybody thinks about the X100-6.
We've already passed the pre-show, Lucas. That was your opportunity to do a 45-minute pre-show about the X100-6.
But if you look way farther down in the notes here, one of the topic lists is X100-6 reviews.
Oh, funny how I didn't see that there before just now. All right. Well, if we have time, we can talk about that.
Okay, maybe. All right. So supposedly, Fuji's photo business is like exploding.
I've seen that. I mean, I feel like I've generally heard that their photo business is doing well.
But it's up like 40% or something.
That's a lot.
Like over last year. It's crazy. And normally you would say, man, that's all Instax cameras.
I definitely think it's Instax.
But their total amount of Instax went down.
Huh.
Instead of it being like 65% of their business, it went down to like 64.
Huh. That's interesting. So that means if their business grew 40%, but the share of Instax within that went down a little bit, that means Instax still grew, but everything else also grew at, the same or a slightly higher rate.
Right. And primary areas of growth were obviously their point and shoot fixed lens camera.
Yes, I can imagine that.
Apparently, like just last month, the release of that camera was like a vertical line.
Really? Wow.
It's just they sold them all.
Yeah.
And
they can't keep them on the shelves.
I think that they're maybe purposely not keeping them on the shelves. I think
we talked about that before.
I think it makes the hype more hypey.
Yeah. But I mean, we've talked about this. They can't keep any of their cameras on the shelf.
I think they're doing it on purpose at this point.
Yeah.
I think
it seems like it has to be, right?
It's some sort of strategy where like they don't want to maintain inventory or something, and they're doing like just-in-time camera construction.
I mean, it's a very conservative way to run a business, and it's like if you can sell everything you make, then sure. If you limit your production, then you're not taking any risk. You're not keeping extra inventory around, but it's kind of a bummer for us.
But then like you're losing sales.
Yeah,
that people
absolutely.
who can't buy the X100, they're just going to go out and buy like a GR or a Lumix S9.
I don't know if they're going to do that, but
Panasonic wants them to. Like so bad.
I mean, like you're kind of an example of that too. You would have bought an X-T5 by now if you had been able to buy one.
True. What? I mean, I kind of wanted to buy one used.
Yeah, I'm sure you did, but it would have been tempting for you though.
Even
right?
still, couldn't buy one new without a kit lens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know.
Can you imagine if I'd bought the X-T5 with that kit lens and then I had 3 standard zooms?
Oh, that'd be fun to make fun of you for that.
I'd be like, Daniel, should I shoot with my 18 to 80? No, it's a 16 to 80. Should I shoot with my 16 to 80 or my 18 to 50 or my 17 to 70?
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Or should I shoot with my 23 millimeter prime or my 56 millimeter? Just ridiculous. How many lenses do you need in the same focal range?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's exciting that Fuji is seeing growth, and I just hope that they can like turn that money into making more cameras, or maybe they can buy a few more like software developers, and they can release their firmware quicker.
Yeah, let's not get carried away. I don't know about that, but it is good to see them growing. I mean, we want to see them keep making cameras, and you have to imagine the growth is good for that. So
it's been like 6 or 8 weeks since they promised me real A's.
That's true.
Since that promise, they've released a firmware update for the XH2S and the X-T5, and they're like, "Oh, here's the touch-to-track autofocus, but like we don't have all those other video features yet, and yeah, the autofocus is better, but also we didn't roll out that film simulation that we promised we were going to give to you, and now we're going to release a new camera, and that one has real A's, and we're still not going to send out that new firmware update. We're just waiting. They're just like,
what the deal is with that.
It's going to happen." I mean, I know we were making jokes that before summer, right? They said spring, so like June 20th. It's coming up.
Yeah,
June 20th is pretty close.
It sure is. I don't know. I don't think they're going to make it.
Yeah. It's just frustrating.
It is.
It's cool to see Fuji blowing up, but like, come on.
It feels like they're turning into one of those companies where the only product they care about is the one that they've just released, and that's a little frustrating.
It is frustrating. It's like to a certain extent, I mean, with limited, capacity and that sort of thing, you can only do so much, but I don't know, maybe like they're too stretched too thin almost. I mean, you go to their website and you're like, oh, like what camera should I buy? And it's like they still sell the X-T4, they still sell the X-T200. and the X-T3 Mark II, and it's just like they have all these old cameras.
It's the Apple Tim Cook plan, right?
It kind of
Like,
is.
keep everything around until literally no one's buying it.
Yeah, but I don't understand it. It's like, why maintain the resources of having to keep like all those sensor productions in line? Like I know they get cheaper, quote unquote cheaper over time because like you paid for it once and now you don't have to buy a new fab.
Mm-hmm.
And so like maybe they're making their money out of it, but they're still selling like 9-year-old cameras
Yeah.
as like new cameras. And I just wonder how much of that is, you know, what could that money be geared back towards, maybe supporting the new lines and focusing on the things that are maybe like within the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, like, I think the reason Apple does it with their stuff is because it's like they've already done the R&D. They just have to, click a button or tell somebody to produce another run of whatever thing. So it's like, why not keep making it? And so maybe they're able to keep selling those cameras without it really being any burden on them. But I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of, and I guess it also fills a role of, here's a cheaper camera. Maybe that gets somebody interested that wouldn't otherwise be interested. But
right, it like keeps their price point or whatever.
yeah. But it's frustrating if you want to buy an X-T5 and it seems like they're not producing X-T5s, but you can go and buy an X-T4. And it's like, why is this happening? Come on, guys.
Yeah. And oh geez, an X-T30 Mark II is like $1,300.
That doesn't sound right.
That
It
doesn't
should be
seem
cheaper
right.
than that. Where are you looking?
I'm looking on B&H Photo.
That's a particularly relevant one, given what we're talking about today, because I think the X-T30 Mark II is a pretty important camera for them still, just at the price point it's at. But I didn't think it was $1,300.
That's because it has a lens with it.
Oh, okay.
There it is. Body only is $900. That was the price that I was remembering. That's like,
I mean, that's probably their only $900 camera, though, right?
it is their only $900 camera, right? They have this, and then I guess like maybe they sell the X-T200, but like as far as their sub $1,000 camera category, we've seen this across like all the camera companies. Cameras are going up like $300-ish.
It's so weird.
Per line.
It's that's kind of our version of the inflation stuff that's been happening, because I think back, I mean, just a couple of years ago, in that same, like, let's say like the $900 to $1,000 range, you could get the X-T30, you could get the XE4,
A6400.
yeah. Well, I mean, even just in Fuji, like the XS10 was $1,000. Like,
Yep.
Fuji had 3 cameras in that like $800 to $1,000 range,
Right.
and now they have one, and it's basically the exact same camera that existed back then.
Right.
Like literally the same camera.
It's like instead of releasing a new camera at that same price point, like, oh, here's our $1,700 camera, now here's the new $1,700 camera. They're just keeping that $1,700 camera and then releasing one at $2,000.
Yeah.
Or in this case, it's a $900, and then the X-T50 comes out and it's $1,500.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand it, and if it's that or not releasing anything new, then I guess I'm glad to have the option to pay more and get the better thing. But it just makes me afraid that things are going to keep getting expensive at the same rate.
I've kind of been wondering if Fuji has figured out where their market is, and it's not in cheap cameras.
Well, I think that's probably true.
I mean, maybe, what was it, 5, 6, 7 years ago, they had a whole XA line. They had XC lenses and XF lenses. And basically everything that was XC, everything that was bare, that wasn't X-Trans, that's just all gone. They cut all those lines. And now they're focusing on their GFX and their XF lines. And I think they've seen that, wow, we have a camera that's, I mean, like, it's cool, but it's not like super special, right? Like, here's a compact, a premium compact camera that people are buying because it looks cool and it has film simulations.
Yeah.
And that camera is $1,700, and people are paying well over that in secondary markets just because they can't buy it. Maybe they're realizing that, wow, we can just make more money if we sell more expensive cameras and just lean on how they look and the JPEGs.
Yeah.
And people are just going to buy it for that reason and not care about like the autofocus or the value or whatever.
So it's almost like we're seeing Fuji turn into a more premium brand.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking is like, well, we can be we can be the alternate to Leica. You know, people want to
Which
have
they're
that.
still way cheaper than that. Right?
Yeah, they sure are. But if you're looking for something that's like a stylish camera, that's an accessory in addition to being like a good photography camera, I mean, Fujifilm is up there in the conversation with brands like Leica.
The bold statement.
I mean, like, sure, like it's not like a premium brand where you're like, oh, look at this is premium because they spent a bunch of money on it, but it is a fashion accessory in a way that like a Canon 7D is not.
Yeah. It has a distinctive look and the retro styling, and I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and it feels like they've realized that people are just going to pay whatever to get that if that's what they want.
Yeah,
and so they can just make their cheap cameras start at $1,400 or $1,500, and it's fine.
I guess you're right.
I don't know. This is what it seems. I mean, like, these things are getting to be more expensive, and that X-Trans 5 system with the 40 megapixel sensor and I think that all is just more expensive.
It has to be. I mean, there aren't that many other cameras that are. I mean, 40 megapixels is still a high number for any camera.
It's the highest for APS-C, period.
Well, and even among full frame, like some full frame cameras have lower count than that, and so
it's an
impressive spec.
There's rumor that the Canon EOS R1 won't even have 40 megapixels.
Yeah, saw that.
Yeah.
More megapixels than the R1.
Yep. Anyways, so Fuji released the X-T50.
Yeah.
I think this was a really exciting release because it's like the smaller version of the X-T5.
Well, and people were wondering what was going to happen because there was no X-T40.
Right.
And so it was like, what's that going to be? And I mean, the rumors started kind of coalescing into, thinking it was probably going to happen this year, but we still didn't know for sure. And then there it is.
I had kind of wondered if they were going to go the XS, basically make an XS20 with the XT double digit styling.
So do you mean PSAM dials or 26 megapixel? Like what
I mean is
from the XT?
What I mean is exactly the sensor and processing configuration of the XS20, but make it look like an X-T50.
Yeah.
I thought that was the route they were going to go.
That would have been a reasonable route, honestly.
And I feel like they could have sold that for $1,300 or $200. But I'm both happy and a little surprised that instead they went with the photo train and they went up with the 40 megapixel.
Yeah.
It's cool to be able to get something as small as this camera is with internal body stabilization. It has IBIS on that sensor package.
And I think it's thinner than the old X-T30 was.
Yeah, I think it's just barely.
Yeah, just barely. But that's impressive because the X-T30 didn't have IBIS and the X-T50 does.
What do you think of the design of the new X-T50?
So it's basically like a rounded thing, right? Like they basically rounded off the edges. I mean, I don't know. I get it. I think it makes sense for pocketability, but I guess I don't think it makes that big of a difference. I mean, I haven't held one. I haven't tried to put one in a pocket, but I can't see it making it that much more, that much more portable. And I don't know. I kind of like the harsher edges of their other cameras, so I'm kind of iffy on it.
Okay, I like it. I think it makes it look more modern in a way. It's nice to see maybe a little bit of a deviation from the other design.
Yeah.
So I think that other things that are cool in this one, I think you had an XT, still have an XT30.
I do.
Mark II.
I still have it. Not the Mark II, just the regular.
Yeah. Does it have a command dial in the front and the back?
Yes.
Okay, so it does have the two. I thought that this one was interesting that like they added an additional dial, or maybe it's that they added the joystick.
They did add the joystick. I don't think mine has that. I mean, they definitely added the film simulation dial.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that, Daniel. You just hang on. What else did they add though to the button layout for this one?
I'm not aware of anything major. I think they moved the AE lock thing.
Yeah, they like moved it back, and I think they basically like the same thing with the XT3 to XT5 where they moved that top button.
Yeah.
Just kind of like some slight arrangement, but you still get like a front dial, back dial. Those click in and out. I don't know if they click in and out on yours. Yeah. Well, geez, Daniel, I guess it's just basically the same as XT30.
Pretty much the same camera.
Whatever. Anyway, they got rid of the ISO dial.
Yeah.
What's with Fuji not wanting ISO dials anymore?
It's ISO auto all the time.
Auto 3200.
It's kind of weird to me because I feel like that's, why do you pick an XT, an XT50 over an XS20? Why do you want dials instead of PSAM? It's like, well, I want the dials, where's my ISO?
I love being able to just look down and see my things and be like, do, and change it. And I don't have to mess with the screen.
Yeah.
And maybe having an ISO dial is more of like a X Pro 3 type person thing. And maybe the XT50 is geared more towards your, I don't know, like people who want Fujifilm because of the simulations and the look.
Yeah. I mean, it could also just be that they expect you to do it with a command dial. Especially, because like what else are you using those command dials for? So maybe that's their thinking, but it's kind of weird.
Little weird. So basically, like, you're gonna have to. What if this doesn't even have? What if you can't set ISO to a dial on this camera?
Wouldn't be that surprised.
Golly.
They didn't have it on the XH2S for forever long.
I'd flip a table.
Yep.
Okay. This camera has like it's so similar to the XT30 of like here's our entry level camera stuff. Like they have a full auto feature where it's like you can hit a switch and be like, I'm in auto mode now, not just okay. I got to set my aperture to A. I got to set my shutter speed to A. That's maybe less intuitive for people who are like newer to Fuji systems.
It has that. It has a built-in flash.
Well, no, but like instead of now I have to set all my dials to A, I can just hit one switch and be in full auto, and then like you said, built-in flash, and then this film simulation dial. It feels like with those three things, this is very much geared more towards like a point and shoot people who don't necessarily want to deal with the settings and they just want to be able to take the picture.
Yeah, it does feel that way.
Which feels weird at the price point.
It does. It feels weird for, what is it? Is it a $1,500 camera?
Yeah, I think so. Because it's the XT5 is $1,700, so this one's $1,500.
It's a $1,500 camera, body only, interchangeable lens. So you have to buy a lens with it, which already I feel like buying a lens makes it not feel like a point and shoot. Like you're taking on this whole extra decision. And yeah, I mean, it's just,
sorry, it's $1,400.
Okay, it's $1,400. But like, for the casual point and shoot crowd, it's like, well, who's buying that over the X106?
Sorry, I just realized that the charcoal silver version has a white lettering, but the silver version has black. This is very interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's the charcoal is a dark color. It would need the white to.
But they also have black. I thought they didn't have black. That's cool.
Yeah, they always make those in a lot of colors.
I feel like no one's really buying this over the X106. I think the people who buy this over the X106 are the people who already are in the Fuji ecosystem and know they can just slap a 27mm 2.8 on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more likely that you would cross shop this against the XT5 than the X106.
Which is an interesting comparison because this does basically everything the XT5 does. What you lose out on is like you have one less card slot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has a bunch of record mode limitations because of just heat dissipation.
Yeah,
they use the old stupid battery.
Yeah, that's a pretty big shortcoming.
I'm just gonna take an aside here. What the heck?
Yep.
We've been moving to the new battery, like XT4, XS20, XH2, XH2S, XT5, all the new battery. Everyone threw away their W126Ss. What? Why? This is so stupid.
Yeah, that's a shortcoming for sure.
Just like put the new battery in it.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's not that much bigger.
It would have lasted forever. Mm-hmm. I'm so mad. I am so mad about the battery. Anyways, they use old battery, only has one SD card slot. They got rid of the ISO dial, has record mode limitations for like how long you can record.
Yeah.
But I think that's
the grip is the other thing.
Well, yeah, sure, like the physicality. It's a smaller camera.
You don't get the trifold or double folding screen that the XT5 has.
You lose a headphone jack, but you can use the USB for it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean there's some differences, but not much, and saving $300, I could definitely see somebody making that choice.
For sure. Yeah, it's an interesting calculus because you could easily like drop down.
Yeah.
But do you think like that's it? It's just like here's just a cheaper version of the XT5 for people who wanted the XT5 but wanted to save $300?
I mean, it kind of feels that way. It's more portable. With that new design, maybe it's a little bit more pocketable. Although I still feel like it's right on the edge of being pocketable. I don't know if you could really say that it is, but I mean, most of those things do feel like pro features. I mean, for me, we have used my X-T5 as another angle in some of our stuff, and so record limits may be annoying for that, but for what I do, like the main feature I guess I would care about is the dual card slots, because when we shoot events, it's nice to be able to have a backup, but a lot of people wouldn't care about that. So, I mean, it does kind of feel like the X-T50 is just a cheaper X-T5.
Okay, one more thing we missed. No vertical tilting screen.
At all?
Yeah, like how on your XT3,
Oh,
XT4, XT5, it can flip out. So if you're holding it portrait, you can have it tilt.
Oh,
but then if you're holding it landscape, you can also tilt it.
I see. Yeah, I tried to mention that. I think I just didn't say it clearly. But I mean, like if you're holding the camera normally, landscape mode, it does tilt up and down.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if you're comparing the size of this, because if you're shopping Fuji stuff, it's X106, XT5, XT50.
Mm-hmm.
They're all the same sensor configuration. There's like different physicalities around the same, sensor processor combination, and like fixed lens or not. The X106 is 521 grams. The XT5 is 557. The XT50 is 438. Now that doesn't include the lens.
Yeah, once you put a lens on there, it's probably pretty similar to the X106.
Yeah, so like basically the same weight. The width of the XT50 is shorter. It's about I call it like 0.2 inches shorter than the X106. But depth-wise, they're like, basically the same. The XT50 has a bigger grip, so you're looking at like, maybe a third of an inch wider, or a third of an inch taller, because it has the viewfinder. I mixed up my dimensions.
I see.
And then as far as width, it's like the XT50 is shorter a little bit, maybe by like 0.2 inches. So within reason, the XT50 is like kind of smaller, but almost the same size as the X106.
Well, and the X106 numbers may be including the lens.
Yeah, the X106 numbers are including the lens.
Yeah, and the pancake lens on the XT50 sticks out farther than the pancake on the X106.
Sure, and it's slower, 2.8 versus F2.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like it's like within reason though, it's essentially comparable, if not smaller in some cases.
Yeah, and cheaper.
But like the XT5 isn't that much bigger. It's like as much wider as the X106 is to the XT50. The XT5 is to the X106. Yeah, I mean, was that not confusing?
I mean, they obviously, those little differences do add up, and so it's a bigger difference, from the XT50 to the XT5. But I don't know. I kind of feel like for most people, I don't feel like it's going to be that much more portable, because, I mean, maybe if you put the pancake lens on there, that'd be the smallest configuration you could get. It would be the pancake lens on the XT50. And so, sure, that's going to be more portable than the XT5. But if you want to use any other lens, like if you want to use the Sigma 18-50, I feel like in practical use, the XT5 is not really that much harder to carry around than the XT50. I don't know. I mean, it's a little heavier, but that's about it.
Yeah, maybe it fits into like a slightly smaller bag or something.
Yeah.
It does seem like the delineation is, the X106 is your point and shoot. Yours just what you see is what you get. Very simple travel camera, and then or everyday camera. And like the XT50 is your, I don't want to deal. It's like I'm not doing professional stuff. I just want a good camera. And then the XT5 is your more professional, classic style.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
But I guess the XH2 is probably their like tier above that. Because then, like,
maybe so, yeah.
It's more of your standard PCM configuration.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's good that they have these options, but I just keep coming back to being disappointed that the camera is as expensive as it is, because it feels like this is trying to slot in where the XT30 slotted in, a couple of years ago. And I mean, like we were saying earlier, it's just, I always pictured the XT00, the XT30 like class camera. In my mind, that was always an $800 camera, and it's just a little shocking that now the camera that's in that slot is $1,400.
Well, it's like they held the same price almost. Well, no, they didn't, because when I bought my XT3, it was $1,800 with the kit lens. Mm-hmm. So I think that camera was like $1,500 maybe at launch, maybe $1,600, and then they dropped in price a little bit. But even it feels like they didn't really boost the cost of like the XT5 significantly.
Not really. Yeah, a little bit maybe.
Whereas we're, what is it, $500 more on the XT50?
It just feels like a dramatic increase in
Yeah.
like more than most other cameras.
Comparatively, they're really driving up the cost of those lower lines, and I don't know, just they gotta make the profit on it or whatever.
Guess,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already went through some of that. I mean, I understand the reasons why they might have done it, but I'm still a little disappointed that this camera is as expensive as it is.
It makes it strange in a way. Usually I wonder, okay, maybe they release at this higher price, that way they have room to bring it down later and still make profit for like its final, whenever they're selling this camera still in 6 years, maybe its final price is $1,000 and like it just comes down in price or $1,200 or something, but they launch it at $1,400 to like get that first mover extra whatever.
Yeah,
but they don't even keep them in stock long enough for that to happen.
Yeah,
like it's probably sold out now. I haven't actually looked. I think it's actually still only on pre-order, but I would bet that in September you're not gonna be able to buy an XT50. It's just gonna be like out of stock.
I mean, why would they ever lower the price, right?
Exactly. Like they're just gonna make demand hold where it is, and I hope that they don't lose customers because of it.
Yeah, I mean, eventually people are gonna say, "I would love to get into Fuji, but unless I just nail it and get their new release as soon as it comes out, you just can't buy their cameras."
Okay, it ships on June 17th.
Okay,
and it's out for pre-order now.
I see. Okay, so if you're listening to this episode, maybe you can get one.
Yeah, maybe you can pre-order. I mean, there's I think they've filled like 75% of the pre-orders for the X100VI at this point. I think that was the headline that I saw earlier today.
It's ridiculous.
It's just like, I don't know. Maybe you'll get it later.
Yeah.
I just wish they could make these cameras faster.
Yeah,
and I wish they were slightly cheaper.
It makes me feel like we're talking about an imaginary camera.
It does a little bit.
It's like, how many people listening to this are ever legitimately going to have the chance to buy one of these?
I don't know. Okay, let's just like take 20 minutes and talk about the film simulation dial.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, it has all of the current, like not all of them. It has most of like the current main simulations on it. Let me switch over my tab here. Okay, it has Velvia, Provia, Astia, Classic Chrome, Rela Ace, Classic Neg. I'm just looking at this at the NCNN. I'm trying to remember these offhand. Classic Neg, Nostalgic Neg, and which one's the A one? That one's Acros.
Acros, yeah.
So one black and white profile, Provia, and then kind of like all the main color styles. I don't think there's a color version on here that's... Sorry, no, the Eterna's not listed. So those are the fixed ones. And then they have a C, which I think is just... I assume that's like a custom option, maybe?
It could be command dial too, though, right?
Oh, that's probably what it is. It's probably command, so you can set it to a dial. So C for command. And then they have S1, FS1, FS2, FS3, which are your user-set film simulations. But what those FS1, FS2, FS3 are is just picking another simulation. So like if you wanted Acros but with like a red filter, or you wanted monochrome or Eterna or sepia for some stupid reason.
It feels like such a huge missed opportunity that they created a film simulation dial and included custom presets on it, but you can't load like a custom film simulation into that slot.
Okay, yeah, so like that's kind of where I'm getting is you can set film simulations 1 through 3 to be whatever you want them to be, but if you are in like the people who buy Fuji cameras want to do film simulation recipes. Like there's a whole sub community around it, and you want to be able to like, okay, this is my Porta 400, and I'm going to use like Nostalgic Neg or Classic Neg, and I want to set my blue chroma filter to +4 and my sharpness to -4 and my color to +1, and you want to like configure all of those things. Those you cannot save to FS1, FS2.
Which is, it feels like that kills the usability of that dial.
It makes it so that it's not for the people who are really into like that Fujifilm subculture.
Yeah.
It's not for those people. It's for the people who just like, oh, I like the way that Nostalgic Neg looks. Click, 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 and then they're going to go shoot their picture and set it in full auto or whatever. I don't understand it. Like maybe you go in and you say like, oh, I want my shadows to be +2, my highlights to be -1, and I want to do a -1 color and whatever. And then you go into that dial and you switch it from Astia to Provia. Those settings didn't change. They're still set to like +2 shadow, -1 highlight, or whatever. And so then you're gonna have to change them again. And on any other Fuji camera, you can set up your custom modes, and you have like C1 through like C7 or something. Even on the X-T3 or the X-T5, like if you go into the quick menu, they have like C1, C2, C3, C4. You can name them, and you can set up all these custom settings with whatever film simulation you want, and then you can just like click through the custom settings.
Yep.
And like the best thing about the XH2 and the XH2S is there is a dial on the top that is C1 through C7. You have 7 custom modes. You can set those to video things, or you can set them to film simulation recipes. I have 3 of my C whatevers set to like, I have one that's like a Kodachrome kind of film simulation, and I have like an Ektachrome one, and then I have like a Porta one. I think it's a Porta 400 one. And I've made that I'm like, I like these cool little film simulations. And so I can just go to like C5 and it's already configured. And I don't have to go in and like set my grain to strong or weak or whatever. What the heck? Like they put a dial on here for the film simulations. Let the people do the thing.
It feels like a missed opportunity on the level of not being able to set ISO on a dial on the XH2S.
It's like you were so close.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would so much rather have, instead of this like film simulation dial thing, just give me a dial with custom modes and leave it blank and give me a Sharpie.
Yep.
And I'll write the names of my film simulations on it or whatever. Make the top of this dial a whiteboard.
There you go. Love it.
Sell stickers to go on it, and then you can like put your little stupid, I don't know. I thought about starting an Etsy business to like sell little like pre-printed like dial circles.
Oh,
actually,
cool.
Daniel, this is my Kickstarter. So I've started a Kickstarter, and what it is it's perfectly cut circles that go on top of your custom wheel for your XH2 or your XH2S. And what it is you can say, these are the things that I have those set to. Like this is my 24 frame per second one, and this is my Kodachrome film simulation. And then we just print the names of all of them, and then you take the sticker and you just slap it on top of the button or on top of the wheel. So you don't have to remember what C2, C3 are. You just look at it and go, that one's 30p, that one's 6K, and that one's Kodachrome.
As a stretch goal for that Kickstarter, instead of text, can they be emojis?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I don't have a name for this yet.
It's honestly not that bad of an idea. It's probably the most reasonable Kickstarter idea you've had.
I guess because I could just like start that as an Etsy business with my Cricut.
Yeah.
And so for it to be a Kickstarter, I have to have some sort of angle.
Yeah.
And so my new angle is this actually a e-ink display with Bluetooth. And you can set those with your phone, and then it'll just update. And it doesn't use any battery power because it's e-ink.
That escalated very quickly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that. I think sticker sounds just fine.
Well, no, that one's achievable. People are gonna be like, why hasn't the Camera Gear podcast come out with those stickers that they talked about? They can totally do that along with the T-shirts that they're never gonna make.
So you're saying we have to push far enough that people won't hold us accountable for not getting there.
Exactly. Like I don't want there to be some sort of possible merch that we could do. It has to be a Kickstarter that will never happen. Totally unachievable.
Yes. I don't know. The film simulation dial thing kind of frustrates me a little bit, and I feel like people online have been. I mean, when we read online, we're reading more from enthusiasts than nobody who's casually into cameras is commenting on camera news online. But the stuff I've seen, people have been pretty disappointed in the film simulation dial.
It seems like a fantastic idea that has kind of I think it's fallen flat with the people who care about this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I care. And when you tell me like I can't like do the thing with the thing that I want to do with it, I just get like, mad.
Yeah.
But I think that, that's probably 5-10% of the audience. And most people maybe aren't going and downloading like Fuji X Weekly's app and then, paying them $20 a month to like find all their cool film simulations and download them and then like set them up on their camera.
You don't think most people are doing that?
No, I don't think most people are doing that. I bet it's like 20% of the Fuji base.
If that.
And so Fuji's probably like, this is going to work.
Yeah.
The people who care about camera gear are going to complain. But the people who don't care about camera gear are going to buy this thing, set it to full auto, and they're going to be able to shoot in all these cool modes.
Mm-hmm. They may also feel like the people who are really into Fuji are not buying that camera.
This camera?
Yeah. Maybe they think that people who are really into Fuji are buying, one of the higher end
The
models.
X100 or the X-T5?
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe.
Just guessing.
I'm going to take an aside here. Earlier when we were talking about that Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
this is just super left field.
Mm-hmm.
We'll come back to the film simulation dial. We're not done with that. Do you remember that Kickstarter that we talked about where it was we were gonna make that panoramic camera?
Yeah.
Where it just like moved like a conveyor belt across the thing.
I do remember that.
There was a Peter McKinnon video just very recently where he was talking about shooting film and stuff. And there is a panoramic. Have you seen this?
No.
There's a panoramic film camera where whenever you shoot it, the lens on the camera starts on the left and then it pans. It literally moves and
so
pans.
They basically made what we were talking about.
But what we were talking about it being like a conveyor belt, this
Yeah.
one like literally moves from left to right. It transitions over, I don't know, say like 30 degrees.
Huh.
So that it can expose, like with the mirrors inside, a larger portion of the film to shoot panoramas.
Wow.
And you have to like just with the focus and holding it still and like how you use this
You
thing.
probably need that on a tripod.
Totally insane. It's all mechanical. Like you crank it up and then it just goes.
Wow.
It already existed.
And it's a film camera, so it's not anytime recent. That's pretty cool.
It's totally nuts. I want more, like, whenever it was film cameras, like you couldn't be like, oh, check out this autofocus software update or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, we had infrared autofocus, and the things that distinguishes these cameras were just like the most absurd mechanical features you can think of.
Yep.
And yes, like literally a panning lens.
So if we could go back in time to the 1970s and do the Camera Gear podcast back then, would have been crazy.
For one, like I guess it would be a mail subscription.
It would be a radio show.
Oh, I guess that would be a radio show. You wouldn't want to like mail people 8 tracks or something.
No, I don't think so.
That would have taken a lot of work.
Yeah.
I guess it would have been a radio show. Would we have like an AM station or an FM station?
Probably AM.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
What AM channel would you want?
I don't think I know enough to continue that discussion.
Yeah. Any options I threw out there would probably just be offensive.
Yep.
So, do you think the film simulation dial was the right call? Do you think they should have is this the right call for this camera? Should they have stuck with the ISO dial, or should they have done something crazy and put a custom dial?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it feels like they're positioning this as like the casual person's camera, which I think it's overpriced for that, but it kind of feels like that's what they're going for. And so if that's what they're going for, I think the film simulation dial makes a lot of sense. But I'm just a little concerned that this camera is about $300 too expensive for that.
I mean, to the point of what we talked about earlier, I think the people that want film simulations and retro cameras are just going to pay whatever it costs, and they don't care. I think Fuji's realized that they are going to make more money from selling fewer cameras.
Mm-hmm.
That way they don't have to make them, because we know they don't like making cameras anyway, and they can just make that amount of money and sell it for more versus like cheaper and then maybe selling more cameras.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to figure out like who is that person that's not buying an X-T5 or an X106 instead of the X-T50?
Who's not buying those instead of like picking the X-T50 over the X100? I mean, it's still the cheaper camera compared to all of them. Maybe
so it's a cheaper camera, but it's you think they don't really care about price, but it may be
maybe
they get in cheaper, they're going to.
Maybe they want that film simulation dial, and maybe they want interchangeable lenses.
Maybe so. I don't know. I mean, I always come back to thinking that, you hope these companies are doing some market research and talking to people and making the decision based on that. And so I always have to feel like they have some data to suggest that this is the right choice. And I think generally I'm not opposed to the idea. I feel like they really missed the mark by not letting you truly have custom film simulations on that dial.
Do you think that it's more of like this is just a camera for your camera? Like people who buy the X-T50 already have an X-T5?
Well, I mean, I think that's a compelling reason to buy one. But those two cameras specifically, I don't know. They're very similar.
But like maybe you need a lighter version to travel with, or
you
need a B cam,
Yeah. Could be. I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be more reasonable if it's like my other camera is an XH2 or an XH2S or a GFX, whatever. But maybe.
I just didn't think that the X-T50 was going to be as confusing as it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like it's in a really weird spot.
I mean, just on the face of it, like, it seems like a win. Like, if you don't need that second SD card slot, you don't need the tilty screen, like, why buy a bigger camera that's $300 more, except for the fact that the battery's dumb?
Yeah, the battery and the ISO dial.
Sure. But, like, I don't know how much that matters.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't.
Does it? It's very, very undefined. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows?
I don't know. I mean, I just bought an X-T5. I got mine used for, about the price of an X-T50. I don't think I would go back. I mean, I think for what I do, I prefer having the bigger grip, and I like that it uses the same batteries as my other camera, and I'm not really concerned about the portability.
I feel like where I land on all this, like, for me personally, what I really want is like an X-T5 that someone is selling used that they like drag through gravel.
Yeah, like an ugly condition X-T5.
Mm-hmm, yep, one that the sensor's fine, but just they didn't even put it in an actual camera bag. They just like threw it in the bottom of their school bag. That's what I want.
Yeah, you would love that.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, they didn't only release an X-T50.
Did they not? Was there something else?
They released a GFX 100S Mark II.
Oh, now that you mentioned, I did see something about that.
Which I don't totally understand why. Like, I understand why. It's a weird one.
Isn't it basically a GFX 100, the Deuce, but way cheaper and without any of the features that nobody really wanted?
Yes, essentially. Well, sort of. Like, it you aren't getting some things. Like the X100, the second, had this like, is this really 16-bit or 14-bit? Some faster shoot mode things. Like, those things don't exist. But whenever the original GFX 100S came out, it was like, here's a cheaper version of the 100 that doesn't have a grip permanently attached to it. And like, why wouldn't you just buy this one that has all the same features?
Yep.
This is similar-ish, but I don't want to get into this today. We're just going to have to talk about this later. They also released lenses.
Yeah. They had the new kit lens, the new basic standard zoom kit lens.
They also released a medium format lens. It was like a 500 millimeter f5.6 or something crazy.
Yeah, something weird.
Anyway, the new kit lens, 16 to 50, 2.8 to 4.8.
Yeah, we those were the rumored specs, right? Like we've kind of mentioned that on some previous show.
It seems like it's better than the outgoing lens as far as like lens performance things.
Yeah, it's like probably a little bit less distortion, that sort of thing.
It's still stabilized. They added weather sealing, which was missing out of the previous.
That's a good improvement.
It's an internal zoom. The other one was external. So maybe better for gimbal work, I guess, if you're like doing that. But like just balance and size. You don't have to worry about the zoom kind of coming in or out. It's a little more durable, that sort of thing.
It seems like the main shortcoming is the 4.8.
Yeah, it went from f4 to f4.8 on the long end, and it just, I don't know. I don't feel wonderful about that. Like, I liked it a lot more when it was f4, but I don't know how much 4.8 versus f4 matters.
And it also feels like, especially if you're shooting casually, you're on vacation or something. Like, we were both just in the situation where we were taking a lot of pictures on vacation, a lot of pictures of people. I mean, a lot of times, like, you want to be at like f5.6 anyway.
That's very true. It's what, 2.8 to 4 is one stop. 4 to 5.6 is one stop.
That's right.
So this is somewhere in between, call it a half a stop.
Yeah. I'd say it's about a half a stop slower. At the extreme end.
So, I mean, that's not terrible.
Yeah.
Like, it's the difference between like ISO 200 and not even 320. 320 would be, that's a third stop. So like 400, 200, 400. I don't know how many people are going to be able to like tell a difference.
I think it's, isn't it lighter weight?
I think it is. Yeah.
Which is, like, honestly, it's probably more meaningful for most people.
Yeah. I think that going from 18 to 16 is a pretty good choice over going from, 55 to 50, like dropping the long end a little bit to get a little wider. I support that.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
And I'm sure that the f-stop was a compromise or whatever to make that happen. So like, I think this is a good lens to replace the outgoing model. If you need something faster, you can buy the Sigma 18 to 50. But if you need something wide, you can get this one. So like, fine.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I think it's a decent replacement. I think that the previous 18 to 55 was just such a good lens of its time that, it's sad to see it go. But I don't know. I think it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when we had first heard the rumors about this, my impression had kind of been, this lens just seems worse in every way. Why are they doing this? But I think adding the weather sealing, making it lighter weight, is a pretty reasonable trade-offs.
Internal zoom, all that sort of thing. So I think it's a good replacement. I think it's just exactly what they need to do. Are you going to get one of these lenses?
No. I already have 2 standard zooms. I don't need a third.
It used to be that the 18 to 55 was so cheap because you could, any camera that you bought from Fuji, it was like a $300 ad to get that kit lens. And it was like, man, this is a crazy good lens for $300.
Yeah.
And if you're going to buy it separately, it's like $600. And at that point, it's like, okay, like that's about what it's worth as far as, lenses go. But the fact that you could get it for $300 in addition to your camera made it an amazing deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one, they're not doing that. I think this is like $600 is the price. And if you buy with a camera, maybe it's $500 more or something, or maybe it's $600 more. They're not really discounting this in the way that they did that other kit lens. And I kind of found that interesting. But also it's like in the same vein as all of the other Fuji stuff is just more expensive because they know they can charge for it.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to get to, this is probably going to end up being a popular lens because you won't be able to buy the camera by itself, but you'll be able to buy it with the kit lens. So
yeah,
people
for sure.
will end up with it.
Do you think that they'll pair this with the more professional bodies like the X-T5? Or do you think they're going to keep trying to push that 16 to 80?
Yeah, I feel like they're going to do that, honestly. I think I think it makes sense to have a different kit lens for those 2 choices.
I strongly consider the 1680 to 80 at one point. I thought that would be a cool, like, all-rounder zoom, but I didn't want an f4 zoom.
Yeah, yeah. You wouldn't be able to use it for indoor video stuff, which would probably be an issue for you.
Yeah, that kind of would have been the deal breaker. Whatever. The 17 to 70 is the ultimate indoor video zoom for a XF camera, unfortunately.
I mean, what I like is when I think about a standard zoom, for me, it's like that's my everyday walk around type lens. And I mean, we just got done with the trip, and that's what I used. I used that 18 to 50. And in that category, I think the 18 to 50 is still the smallest of all those options, like physically the smallest.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so I find that appealing. And I don't, it may be heavier than this 16 to 50. I'm not sure, but I like how small the 18 to 50 is.
All right. So as far as standard zooms for Fuji, like I own 2 of them right now. I own the Sigma 18 to 50 and the Tamron 17 to 70. I have owned the 18 to 55, but now they have this new 16 to 50.
Yeah.
They have the 16 to 55 2.8. They have the 18 to 120 power zoom, and they have the 16 to 80 f4.
That's a lot of choices.
There are 7 standard zooms for Fuji.
Wow.
Depending on like what you're wanting, what you're looking for.
Didn't realize they had that many.
Yeah. What do you think is the? I know that like the answer is, well, it depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
But like really which one is the best standard zoom for most Fuji shooters, Daniel?
It depends on what you're doing, Lucas. I don't know. I mean, I really hate to say this, but I think it's hard to beat the 17 to 70 if you're doing video. Like whether you need portability or not, it's hard to beat the 17 to 70 because you get the fast aperture, stabilization, and a good range.
Most of the time when we're shooting video, we're not really needing to shoot at 2.8 unless it's like an indoor mobile environment, that sort of thing. I love the versatility, being able to go that fast. But I think that, f4 is basically fine. And so I think that the 18 to 120 is a really interesting option for a video lens because
it's cool. It's power zoom.
Because you have the power zoom and that sort of thing. I still for me, I'd pick the 17 to 70 over it, but I wouldn't discount the 18 to 120 as like the video lens choice.
Interesting.
I feel like for a travel lens, for like an all-arounder where you only want one lens, I would probably pick this 16 to 80 over the, which we forgot to mention, what is it, like the 13 to 180 or the 16 to 18 to 180? What's that Tamron super zoom?
It's something like that, but I don't remember the exact range.
Anyways, there's a few different super zooms. I would probably pick the 16 to 80 f4 over the super zooms for like a travel lens for like landscape and that sort of thing.
So why didn't you buy that instead of the 18 to 50? You got nothing to say to that.
When I'm thinking travel lens, I'm thinking like outside.
Still not.
Still not answering the question.
Yep. Still not. Still not working.
Because similar to many photographers, I am plagued with the obsession with fast glass, and I just have to have the fastest lens that I can get.
Yep.
And I already own one 2.8 zoom, so obviously my other zoom has to be 2.8 as well.
There it is. That's what I was looking for.
I think it comes down to price. It's just because the 16 to 80 was, or it's still like $800.
Oh, I didn't know it was that expensive.
Versus the 18 to 50. There's so many numbers. I'm just losing it all. The Sigma 18 to 50 is like $500, $550.
$550. Yeah.
It's like if you're looking for a cheap lens, like a cheap kit lens, the Sigma is the way to go. But if you need more versatility, maybe the 16 to 80 is a better choice.
Interesting. But then who would buy this new kit lens?
I think you just get it whenever you buy your X-T50 because it's going to come with it.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. Like, it's probably going to be cheaper than the Sigma with the camera, and it has the dial on it. So it's like this kind of just goes with it.
Does the 16 to 50 have an aperture dial?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a good reason to get one. That and the weather sealing are probably the two things that would interest me the most. I guess stabilization too, because the Sigma doesn't have that. So there's some reasons there.
Man, you can buy a used 16 to 80 f4 for like $485 on Adorama. I did think about it, but that lens is maybe the size of like a 16 millimeter lens, and maybe like a little longer. It's kind of chunky. It's a little big for a lens, and it's externally zooming.
Not as much as the 17 to 70.
No, that lens is in a class of its own as far as size. I think it's huge. It's enormous. Daniel, I have two standard zooms.
Does that bother you?
Yes.
It's the first time that having a lot of lenses has ever bothered you.
We're not even going to get into how many lenses I have at this point. What do I do?
Well, I mean, I'm in the same boat. I have the exact same two that you have. And
it's because we're bad influences on each other. It's just an echo chamber in here.
I feel like I need them both because I still use the 1770 a lot for video because of the stabilization and because of the reach. But I don't want to take that lens with me if I'm just taking photos because it's so dang big. And so it's like I feel like both of those lenses are filling a reasonable role, and there isn't really a single lens that could replace both of them. So.
Right. I think it's easy to justify both of those just in that one is so much better for travel and one is more versatile for like run and gun.
Yeah.
I like the 17 to 70 for the stabilization in that I still have an unstabilized Fuji body that I want to pair it with. And if I had got rid of my X-T3 and I bought like an X-T5 or something, then I would not feel the need to have that lens as stabilized. And I feel like if Fuji came out with a new 16 to 55, that maybe I would be inclined to want to sell both of my standard zooms.
Interesting.
And buy another standard zoom.
Well, if they came out with a pro, a pro standard zoom, that could be interesting to see. Where it's 2.8 aperture ring, all that. I could see it.
In its heyday, that's 16 to 55. People would say things like, it's like shooting with a prime lens.
Yeah.
This lens is so good.
It just seems like it's been outclassed technologically by some of the newer stuff.
It has. It's gotten a little long in the tooth. It's not perfect optically. It was really good in its day. It's still a really good lens. And like it competes with all these ones that we're talking about. But I mean, I don't think it's as like you can't quite say the same things about it. Like it's still as good as it ever was. Good as it what's that phrase? Not as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I ever was.
I've never heard that, but I'm gonna take your word for it.
Okay, whatever. Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, it seems conspicuous at this point. That seems like the lens they need to update next.
Nah, they're never gonna update it. It's never gonna happen, Daniel.
Never.
They haven't even released a new 16 1.4.
That's true.
they're gonna release like a weird range for the new zoom. It's gonna be like 14 to like 52 or something dumb.
14 to 45.
Have you seen the rumors about that Sigma lens that they're supposed to come out?
Remind me.
There's one. So remember we've been talking about the 18 to 35 and how it was like this 1.8 zoom was crazy, and Sigma's like everyone's shooting full frame. Why would we make an APS-C lens? They're talking about making it's like a 24 to 42 or something 1.8 full frame zoom.
I do remember that. Yeah, 1.8 full frame would be crazy.
It would be crazy.
Yeah.
But it could happen.
I mean, that 18 to 35 was legitimately a really good lens.
Still really good lens.
I could, I
think
it could sell.
I want that lens for XF so bad.
Yeah.
And it just seems like it's never going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the downside to it is that it was a chunky lens.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
It was giant.
Like that was not a travel lens.
Yeah, and then you put that thing on an adapter to put it on mirrorless, even bigger.
Yeah.
It's just enormous.
Yep. But that was the setup everyone was using for a while because it was so good.
It seems like there just isn't money in APS-C for Sigma anymore.
Yeah.
Like they have their whatever lenses that they've come out with. And those are just the APS-C lenses, and there's 5 of them, and they're going to sell them to everybody. But it feels like unless those lines from like Sony and Canon kind of start seeing more movement, Sigma's just going to keep just only making full frame.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems that way to me too, which is unfortunate, but I don't know. At least we got the 18 to 50, which I do think is a good lens. So,
would you want a full frame lens if they mounted it on XF?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on how big it is and what I was using it for. Like the Tamron 17 to 70 to me feels like it's about the size of a full frame lens. And I mean, that may be an exaggeration. It's not quite that big, but I would use it for video, but probably like not for travel, not for general use. It would just be too big. Probably be expensive too.
I would strongly consider buying a Tamron 35 to 150 f2 to f2.8.
Yeah, you talk about that lens all the time.
Because on APS-C, that would be like it would be the 50 to 140 essentially. Like it's more range than the 50 to 140, and it's faster.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
It would be amazing.
I don't know though. That 50 to 140 is a really good lens.
The 50 to 140 is an incredibly good lens. But I mean, like Tamron could just put an XF on that thing.
That's all they have to do. Just put the mount on there.
Just slap it on there. Sell it to Fuji. Come on, Tamron. What are you doing?
I don't know.
So I should just keep my standard zooms and then just wait for like the next big thing.
I mean, either that or just buy more lenses, man. Just, get that 16 to 80. Maybe try out that 18 to 120. Just keep buying lenses. That's what you do.
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
I would. That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter @CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.